What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Buffalo Dash. Pretty crazy past couple of days here in Boulder. 2 days ago it was 95 degrees. Yesterday it was 30 degrees and snowing. It's pretty awesome if you ask me, but we have a few things to talk about right now, so let's dive into probably the biggest news of the week is Pac-12 football coming back. Yes, as some of you may or may not heard, the Pac-12 has partnered with Quiddle Corp for rapid testing of all college athletes. This is great and all, but this doesn't change the fact that college football is not coming back. Yes, rapid testing lets teams minimize to some degree the risk that they're taking by practicing. If players can get tested every day, and if they get consistent negative tests, that's great. It's showing that the players are doing what they need to do. They're not getting positive. They're not testing positive. So therefore, they can possibly proceed with a college football season. But I still do not think, even with this rapid testing, that bringing college football back right now is a good thing. We're still nowhere close to getting a vaccine. There's still hotspots all across the nation, and we can't seem to get a grip on controlling this thing. So yes, does the rapid testing bring a little bit of hope to the world of college football, especially for the Pac-12? Of course it does. It gives teams, like I said, the ability to minimize the way that they can contract COVID-19. They are able to safely practice now, which I guess is a good thing. Even if a college football season doesn't happen, they are able to keep the players healthy and keep them on the field. But I think the Pac-12 is rushing into this thing. We've been looking for good news, and the emergence of the rapid COVID testing is good news. But I think the Pac-12 needs to be careful that they don't rush into this thing and jump the gun and have a college football season, and then a week in have half the players be testing positive, even with this rapid testing, because they didn't think it through. They didn't go through the whole process of weighing the pros and cons, getting not only discussing within the higher ups in the Pac-12, but discussing with each individual school all the way down to the player level, because at the end of the day, the players are the ones who are playing college football. They're the ones putting their lives on the line for other people's entertainment. And if they don't see that this rapid testing is enough for them to stay safe, then I think the Pac-12 rushed into it. Then they look really bad compared to the other Power 5 conferences who took things a little bit more slower, had things under control, and are having successful college football seasons. So in the end, this really doesn't mean anything in terms of is Pac-12 football coming back. It gives us a little hope. It's definitely a step in the right direction. It gives the Pac-12 a little more of a clear picture as to how they can proceed going into the fall of 2020, and then their planned start date of the new college football season in January of 2021. But if the only good news to come out between now and then is that we can only do rapid COVID testing of all these players, is that enough for college football, Pac-12 football to come back? No, it isn't. There's still a giant risk that these players can get sick, that even though we have rapid testing, it's still not preventing these players from getting COVID-19. It's not limiting any of the risk of exposure and contraction between these players, especially when they're practice, because they're hitting each other, getting super sweaty. They're all over each other. Football is a physical sport. It's just the way it is. But like I said, even though they partnered with this company to do rapid testing of all their student athletes, I think football of all sports definitely isn't the sport to be coming back first. I think sports maybe like soccer or having the start of a men's basketball season is a little more easier because you have less players, you have less interactions. It's a lot easier to keep like a women's soccer team, a team of 20 people separate from a team of 50 players, at least on a college football team. So it's just bottom line. College sports shouldn't be coming back. This rapid testing basically means nothing. But yeah, that it is what it is. Bottom line, this rapid testing means nothing. College football isn't coming back anytime soon. Don't get your hopes up. I'm sorry. It's just the way it is. But in more specific news, about a couple of days ago, some news broke that Colorado football has partnered with PointsBet, which is an online sports betting company. Because of the lack of fall sports, Colorado is kind of in a desperate need for a little bit of money. So they went out, explored their options, and partnered with this sports betting company, which means that Colorado is the first college sports university to partner with and allow sports betting. So this is a kind of an interesting idea, if you ask me, because on one hand, Colorado did it for the funds, with no college sports, there's no tickets, there's no TV ad revenue. They're not raking in the obscene amount of money they usually do in the fall. But on the other hand, it's definitely allowing the fans to get a little more interactive with the sport. Professional sports betting became legal about a year ago. It's really in certain states it's really big. I know in Colorado it's legal, but I think this definitely gives college football a little more oomph to it, if you ask me. Especially if other schools in the other Power 5 conferences allow their schools to partner with sports betting companies like Colorado did. Does that present any challenges, though? I think it does, because now, there's some college players that are of the legal betting age, that are 21. So does that bring in the issue that, are players now going to start betting on their teams or against their teams? Are going to start throwing games? It's definitely an interesting idea to think about. While I do not think college athletes in any type of way are going to start throwing their games and betting on the other team against when they're playing them. I think the sheer fact of having that available and having that connection with a sports betting companies definitely presents an issue with the relationship between the university and that sports betting company. In terms of pros, I think, like I said, it starts to get the fan base a little more involved. If the fans are not just people watching it, but also, I don't want to say betting is a good thing on sports, but it gets you more into the game. If your quarterback of your favorite team throws a 80-yard bomb to score a touchdown, and you just live bet that team was going to score a touchdown the next play, look at that. You're having 10 times as much fun as you were before. The fact that you weren't allowed to do sports betting, and that it gets people more involved. So bottom line, sports betting, I think in Colorado's case, they're definitely not looking at it as a way to get fans more involved. They're definitely looking at it as a way to generate some funds in a fall that generated basically little funds because there was no college sports. But I think in the long run, if the college football season comes back and this is successful, possibly the start of a successful relationship, possibly something that other schools can start looking into, start doing it for their own good, all that good stuff. So I think it's definitely the right step. You're definitely opening the door a little bit, putting your hand in there, testing the waters. I think if comes time to it, Colorado doesn't like this. I think that They cut ties. Everything goes back to normal. We have our regular college sports things, and it was a one-time deal. It worked okay, fine. But I think there's a lot of promise coming out of this that if our partnership with PointsBet is successful and Colorado definitely takes a stake in the amount of money they make, I think it's a relationship that possibly could stay for an extended period of time. So bottom line, is it a good thing? Yeah, I think it is for now. I think I can't give a definite answer if it's here to stay, but give it a year. If it's successful, I definitely think it's something that it's a really good idea. Like I said, it's a great way to get fans implemented into the game, and it's just an all-around makes the game a lot more entertaining for the fans, and it makes things a lot more interesting when you're watching a college football game or a college sports game. Definitely be kind of cool to bet on women's soccer, definitely kind of see the type of things, definitely get your mind into it, get more viewership for each sport, especially sports like college soccer where they have a good amount, but if there was a way you can make it more entertaining, like sports betting, does that increase the viewership of each sport? We'll definitely have to see, but I think this is a step in the right direction. Colorado made the right decision in these challenging times to rake in some funds, help support their facilities, their activities, and it's a good start. We'll see what happens. And going to our next point, now, while Colorado has only been in the Pac-12 for about 10 years now, there's definitely a couple teams that I would say have emerged as Colorado's rivals, if you want to say it. Now, Colorado, I would say their biggest rival is either Nebraska or their in-state rival, Colorado State. The Nebraska rivalry dates all the way back to when Colorado was part of the Big Eight back in the 80s and 90s. Like I like to say, the golden era of Colorado football. Back when we were two powerhouses in the college football world, we were constantly ranked top 5 in the nation. Sometimes even Nebraska won, Colorado 2. We'd trade blows. Colorado would win a national championship in 1990, while Nebraska finished number 3 in the nation. Nebraska sucks. I will live by that for the rest of my life. But while it may seem like a fair rivalry, in fact, Nebraska owns a 49-20 record. So, as you can see, Colorado is a 29-game deficit away. But this past couple of years, we won in Lincoln, and last year we won in overtime on a comeback win. So we're 2-0 in the past few years against Nebraska. So if you ask me, we're definitely the better team right now. In terms of their other rivalry, Colorado State, this what we like to call in Colorado the Rocky Mountain Showdown. So this has been going on since before Colorado State was named Colorado State, back when they were an agriculture school. And within the state of Colorado, the Rocky Mountain Showdown is a big deal every year. For the past, I believe, 15 to 20 years, it's actually been held at the Power Field at Mile High, where the Denver Broncos play. It's really awesome to watch a college football game in a professional football stadium. Last year was super awesome, a great atmosphere. Colorado has absolutely dominated this rivalry since the beginning. We own a 67-22 record over Colorado State. And that's just because Colorado has always been the better football team. We've always recruited better players. We've always put better talent on the field. We've always had better coaches, a better program. This is not discounting the Colorado State football program at all. They play in a super competitive conference in the Mountain West that includes teams like a Boise State and an Air Force, who both finished top 25 in the nation last year, who every year seem to be like really good teams. But CU has just been the better team throughout the years, and it will continue to be unless something drastically changes within each football program. Last year we'll be playing Colorado State for about 4 years, and in 2023 we'll be picking the rivalry back up again in Folsom Field in Boulder. I'll be there, even though I graduated college by then. But it's a great rivalry, a lot of fun, a lot of bad blood, good blood between each other. It's all around fun. We definitely call CSU our little brothers because, well, they kind of are, if you ask me. In terms of Pac-12 rivalries, like I kind of hinted at in the beginning of the segment, I'd say the two biggest rivalries Colorado has within the Pac-12 would be Utah and USC. Now, I'm going to start with the USC rivalry. I'm going to preface this to say that we have an 0-14 rivalry against USC. But when it comes down to it, there is a lot of comparisons between these type of schools USC and Colorado is. Colorado has sometimes been referred to as the USC of the mountain regions just because there are so many California kids, me including, who go to this school. I have a lot of friends who go to USC, that kind of stuff. And while we may not competitively be up there, in the past couple of years we have been. Last year we lost a really tough one to USC on a Friday night televised game in the cold. Our defense blew it, but that's a whole other story. We should have won that game. We would have been bowl eligible if we won that game, but I have a whole lot of comments on that kind of thing. But I think in the foreseeable future, after Keaton Slovis leaves, I think CU can definitely hover around the talent level and the skill level that USC has, and I think it definitely can make this rivalry interesting. I definitely think the Pac-12 needs a good rivalry besides, the obvious UCLA and USC and the ASU, U of A, and the Washington and Washington State. Those rivalries are getting old, if you ask me. But possibly, if Colorado can get better, if USC can get a little worse, I think we could figure something out here, if you ask me. And our second biggest rivalry, I think, in the Pac-12 would be the Utah rivalry. So this actually predates before Colorado joined the Pac-12. Utah and Colorado have always had a super low-key rivalry. There's a name for it. I'm really not sure what it's called. But CU actually holds the all-time record at 32-31. I know, really close if you ask me. But the past couple of years, when in 2016 Colorado beat Utah at home to win the Pac-12 South, and then last year I really thought we had a chance marching in there to Utah. We scored a TD on our first drive, and that was it. And then we just got absolutely blown out. But Utah was an extremely good team last year, so it definitely showed against Colorado. But I think this is a super low-key rivalry that I think the Pac-12 needs to promote a little bit more. Utah and Colorado are both, as you could say, the mountain schools of the Pac-12 because all the other schools are either in the desert or along the coast. So you can kind of say that there's like a mountain rivalry, sort of. We both played elevation, both cold weather schools, both extremely hard places to play a college football game at. And so I think obviously Utah was a super good team last year and Colorado stood no chance. But again, much like the USC rivalry, if Colorado can become a better team, if Utah can get a little worse, which I think they will because they lost a lot of good players in the draft this year, I think this rivalry can become one of the more predominant ones in the Pac-12, especially, like I said, because all those other traditional rivalries are getting old, if you ask me. I think it's time to spice things up, out with the old USC, UCLA. Yeah, it's historic, but who cares? UCLA is just a terrible football team, if you ask me. And in with the new two competitive football teams, Colorado, Utah. Call it the mountain rivalry of the Pac-12. I think it's super marketable, something that not only Colorado and Utah fans would tune into a game for, but the rest of the Pac-12 and the rest of college football nation. And so I think that could become a premier rivalry within the Pac-12 and the college football nation as a whole. But the big question, who is Colorado's biggest rival? I would have to say it would be Colorado State, just because it's an in-state rival. We usually play them every year as one of our non-conference teams because it's a guaranteed win, if you ask me, because Colorado State is a subpar football program, but I won't bash them any more than I will. It's historic. It's gone on for literally 100 years since the beginning of both CU's and CSU's football programs. It's always been a marquee matchup every year. And it's just, when you think of Colorado college football, you think, oh, CSU, CU, the big rivalry. It's historic, much like the UCLA and USC rivalry. I think the close second would be Nebraska, just because there's a lot of bad blood between CU fans and Nebraska fans. There was definitely a great atmosphere last year when Nebraska came to play CU at Folsom Field. I mean, got to give Nebraska credit. 3/4 of the stadium was red, like bright red. They're a super well-traveling college football team, but we won. A lot of bad blood. I know a lot of families where one of them went to Nebraska, one of them went to CU, and I don't know how they coexist just because of the bad blood between them. And then in terms of Pac-12 rivalries, I think the biggest one would have to be Utah, just because it goes back before Colorado was part of the Pac-12. And I think it's the rivalry that in the foreseeable future that the Pac-12 can kind of create, market, that it's the Pac-12 Mountain showdown between the two Pac-12 Mountain teams. I think if Colorado can get a little bit more competitive, I definitely think we can definitely make those games primetime television, super marketable, and extremely fun games to watch. With that, this is the end of our show. Kind of a short show today. Not a lot happening in the world of Colorado football. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in to already our 4th episode of Buffalo Dash. I want to thank you guys so much for your support. If you want to see more of me, like always, follow us on social media, on Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook. We post highlight clips of our shows, things we think that really stood out in our shows. And if you wanted to check out our full shows and those clips, as well as some of the other shows and clips, I definitely recommend going to look at some of the other shows. All of my other co-hosts are really good at what they do. Their shows are really interesting, especially with the shows with two people. They get in some pretty heated debates. Go watch the ASU shows. I think those are really, really good. So if you want to head over, go to dashsports.tv. And with that, thank you guys so much. I look forward to seeing you all next week. Have a great day.